when I look back on it and when my kids look back on it, I want them to remember all these great things, and I want them to remember me being a part of it.
That's Minnesota Wild goaltender Devan Dubnyk, our guest on today's episode of One Hunnit and One, a special feature of the GoMN One Hunnit Podcast.
Stopped by Devan Dubnyk. 3 seconds to go. No! We play on, and we're going to a shootout. And fires on the goal line. Oh, Devan reaches back and saves it. Devan Dubnyk keeps it out by inches.
It's easy to forget that professional athletes, when stripped of their fame and fortune, are no different than anyone else. Jump higher, run faster, have the bodies of Greek gods. Yep, that's a job requirement. But before LeBron was LeBron, he was a kid in Ohio. Before Tom Brady was a Super Bowl champion 5 times over, he was a kid in California cheering for Joe Montana. And before Montana earned the nickname Joe Cool, he was just some kid in a coal mining town in western Pennsylvania. The point is, stars aren't simply born. They all have a story inspired by special people. For Minnesota Wild goalie Devan Dubnyk, it was family, specifically his father Barry and mother Barb.
I played a lot of hockey, just like anybody that gets this far. The amount of time that they put in and invested into me playing it's crazy to think about, and I obviously appreciate that, and hopefully am repaying them a little bit with some exciting hockey to watch.
Dubnyk's story growing up might sound a lot like yours, actually. Chores, allowance, and a payoff for each, depending on the difficulty and time commitment required to get the job done.
If we got home from school and instead of throwing our stuff everywhere, if we hung up our coat and put our school bag away, we got to make a check mark, and that was like 10 cents. Mowing the lawn and vacuuming was kind of like your big one for the week. So if you mowed the lawn, well, I shouldn't say if because it wasn't really a choice, but you get a check mark and it's $10, or vacuuming the basement is $5, and so there's tons of different stuff that you got to go and I usually added up to about $20-25, which was lots when you're a kid.
He's a normal guy with extraordinary people in his life.
Dubnyk, not sure where it is. The puck's behind the net, and Dubnyk is in the net. He got knocked over backwards in his man.
And even though he's as normal as you and I, his parents, they were extraordinary. His dad coached him while working for IBM, where he was a computer repairman, and then he climbed the company ladder all the way up to IBM's lead service manager of Western Canada. His mom worked as a florist, although she went way above and beyond as the mother of 3 kids while she was battling breast cancer. It was the definition of perseverance.
I was 15, 16, 17 years old when she was fighting it, so I obviously will remember it a little differently than my older brother and sister and my dad, but just the strength that she had, when she's down and out and she's sick. And I always say that it was like the only thing that she was worried about was being a mom and making sure that we didn't feel like she was sick and that we didn't see her down and out. She was up every time she could. She'd run upstairs to her bathroom to throw up so that we didn't have to hear her and see it. And I mean, to have that kind of strength and selflessness to when you're in a position where everyone else should be caring about you and you should be letting it happen, she was still only worried about looking after us, and that like I said, that selflessness and strength is something that has stuck with me my whole life. And if I can have half that, going out and playing hockey every night seems pretty small when she showed me that kind of strength.
Now, most of Dubnyk's answers when he was riding in his car 3 hours or so east of Vancouver, where he lives in the off-season, he took some time, thought for a second, and then gave a great answer. But he didn't take any time to answer this question. Do you think if your dad wasn't a coach, you would be where you are today?
No, there's no chance. I mean, he was my coach from when I was younger, and he coached me a few times when I started goalie and started playing ref. He was my head coach, and he's good. Like I said, I always kind of pick his brain a little bit. My kids are still too young, but I'm always asking him kind of, when did you know to push me? When did you know when to kind of let me be a kid? And he was so good with it. So I'm definitely going to be picking his brain for a lot of years going forward for some help with my kids, how good he was with me.
His dad's job at IBM required a lot of moving and uprooting. Dubnyk was born in Regina, Saskatchewan, moved to Toronto, actually a suburb of Toronto called Newmarket, then off to Winnipeg, then Vancouver, followed by Calgary, all before Dubnyk was 10 years old.
He actually got offered to go back to Toronto, but at that time it's kind of been enough. He said no because, we're kids, and that's a decision that he made for us, and I certainly appreciate it because Calgary was a great spot to grow up and play minor hockey and kind of settle down. So I look at Calgary as home.
And it's there in Calgary, actually in the backyard of their house, where Dubnyk's dad took the next extraordinary step, paving the way to his NHL career. He built him a hockey rink.
He went out there and he designed it himself and figured out how to make it work, and which is crazy to think about because there's no chance I could ever do that. But and then each year, he'd go out there and he just worked tirelessly on it, and each year the rink kind of improved a little bit. We added boards a little higher, and then we had a chain link fence behind the net so that it knocked the pucks down. And by the end, the rink was pretty phenomenal right up until I left to play juniors. And the amount of time that we got to spend on that rink, it was every day. We got to have our friends over right after school. Everybody come to our house, and you put your school bags away and put your skates on and go outside, and you'd play till dinner time.
Devan told me that one of the things he works hardest on is honoring his family members with his goalie mask. There's a pink ribbon honoring his mom's win over breast cancer. She's healthy. Initials for all of his family members, and photos of his kids.
It's always fun to look at them every game when you put it on or take it off. It's crazy how much love you can have for your kids when you have them.
Key denied by Dubnyk. What a save by the Minnesota goaltender.
Dubnyk's parents, they've been married for 35 years now. While Devan and his wife Jennifer, they've been married for 5. They have kids together, and their goal is just to have their kids talk sweetly about them, just like Devan did his family.
When I look back on it and when my kids look back on it, I want them to remember all these great things, and I want them to remember me being a part of it, and not just having these memories of them doing fun things, but having the memories of them doing fun things with us as a family.
That's Minnesota Wild goalie Devan Dubnyk and his story on One Hunnit One, a special feature of the GoMN One Hunnit Podcast. You can find the podcast from Go on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, Podbean. Wherever you download a podcast, you'll find it. Just search GoMN One Hunnit Podcast. And remember, keep up to date with all of the breaking Minnesota news, sports, and entertainment at GoMN.com.